Awesome.
Away we go. Growing up, we had fields in the backyard and woods across the street. It was full of adventure. It was full of doing, not staying at home. We don't have ice buildup on the shore, but I have one extra set of yak tracks if we could get one photographer. As outdoor photographers, you're not going to get too many pictures on the couch, that's for sure. So no matter how the weather seems, it's overcast, it's not the day I want, you can always find an excuse to not go out there. But it could just be that lousy overcast day is the day that the sun breaks out and it was just magic. I'm a visual person. I've learned to see the world in pictures. I think I really got good at this as a newsman because, you know, you've got to get the shot and you're standing here, but you're imagining what is it like 20 or 30 or 40 feet that way.
Todd left a legacy at the newspaper in many ways.
I kind of knew early that my dad was like a rock star here.
He was this local legend who covered everything and was so good at what he did.
I remember I forgot my homework or something and he came into my classroom and all my friends were like, oh, there's Todd Reed. And I just thought it was so cool. I felt so special.
There weren't 40-hour works in small town newspapers. You know, 60, 80 or plus was not unusual.
He wrote his own stories, he shot his own photos, but then he also developed them.
And my kids were often alongside.
He would shoot a lot of film and then we would study him on the light table and I remember him, oh, look at this Kodachrome slide versus Fuji Velvia, the same scene. They look different. So it was just fun to be a part of that. He could have been like a lot of parents that just worked all the time and forgot their kids, but he made a point to include us.
There were times where I was home alone with the kids. Could be middle of the night, and we'd get that call, throw the kids in the back with their little Kmart sleeping bags, and away we'd go. And I would go close enough to the scene that I could still see the car from where I went, but not close enough that the kids could see what was going on.
Todd in particular had unique roles in going to accidents because he did have some emergency responder skill. Often he'd be the first person there and he would sometimes administer medical care.
He would sometimes then have to have somebody else drive the vehicle home because he was driving the ambulance to the hospital to help the paramedics. So that happened more than once.
A lot of that hard news stuff is more stressful. It's sometimes more painful. You're covering tragedies that no one wants to be at. The story that I liked to tell was to focus on the rescuers. They were my heroes.
It just really took a toll on him, and I just remember Debbie being very encouraging and realizing that my dad wasn't maybe even healthy anymore.
One of the last things Todd covered at the Ludington Daily News was a fire in which 9 people died. 8 of them were children. He had to be there with people, with families, through the hardest time of their life when they buried children. And it was the right thing to do, to spend time with families and build relationships with them after the fact so that they could tell their story about their loved one.
My biggest focus in the midst of all that tragedy was to not look like the hungry photographer, reporter, just there to get their pictures, you know. But when you're at the scene, how are you acting? What are you doing? I did what I could, and you know, it was important to me to not just grab a shot.
Dad in 1993 got the opportunity to do full-time at the Coast Guard station in Ludington from May until October. September through May, he could teach at West Shore and fill in the rest of the time with doing art fairs and shooting his own landscape stuff. But that meant quitting the paper, and I'm always really thankful. Debbie was the first one to encourage him to do that, and I think that was the best decision my dad ever made.
I came to where I liked to shoot more of the National Geographic type photographs. Just get out in the world and find something. In the Coast Guard, I just gained the greatest love, passion, and respect for Lake Michigan and all of its power. That's very applicable to our outdoor photography all the time. It's like, I think I'm a person that feels like I'm particularly in tune with nature when I'm on a Lake Michigan waterfront. I have the knowledge and the confidence and also the proper risk assessment to be really good in harsh environments.
I think the very most memorable moment for me photographing with my dad was when we hiked across Lake Superior. It was frozen, and we did almost a mile hike to the Grand Island ice caves. You start out in the dark and you're like, well, I think that's ice, but that might be open water.
We got there and we were exhilarated. The sun is just coming up, lighting these rock island walls, just covered with these ice formations, and they're 100 feet tall sometimes,
It was a really bright, sunny day, and generally we don't like clear blue skies and really bright days for photography, but it was perfect because it was so bright it came through the ice.
You have the ultimate softbox and all this color. I get inside this cave and I find this inner chamber, and these ice formations at the top, they've made like a triangular crown, going right down into the room. And here's this emerald green wall, and right in the middle of it is this crack going all the way down, open to the outside. It's like a spiritual white, and right away, it's the doorway to heaven.
The feelings we had in the caves, it was just a spiritual moment for my dad and I. I'm here with a camera doing this because I'm supposed to be. We're supposed to be sharing this.
As we say, God puts it out there, we chase after it. We're witnesses. I'd always dreamed of publishing a book. Found a lady in Charlevoix that had published a book on Charlevoix, and I thought, well, she did Charlevoix, it's a beautiful picture book, we could do a book on Ludington, how do you do it? So we asked for a little bit of her time. We drove up to Charlevoix in a snowstorm, we talked to her. So now leave Charlevoix, we're driving down the road in a snowstorm, it's a blizzard. And my wife Debbie, and she's not saying a thing, And in journalism, you learn this thing called a pregnant pause, like, don't say anything. Just wait. They'll start talking. So I'm driving and looking and driving and looking. And finally, she's like, I think we can do this. So she was excited about it. She had bought in. She saw the logic and the potential for the numbers to work and it not to just be a pipe dream. It had to make sense. That's how Ludington Point to Point was born.
With everybody's encouragement, he just continued to grow that business, and it was really all hands on deck. We'd all help map pictures in the basement and cut frames. We weren't very organized, but it was all part of the process, and I wouldn't change any of it.
It's not easy, as Brad would say. It's a fast ride, and it's got its ups and downs, and most good things in life don't come without pain. Without staying the course.
He's now nationally recognized, and another milestone for my dad, he had the cover image of Outdoor Photographer, so it was just a big check. So now I'm gunning for National Geographic, so I haven't given up that goal yet either.
Brad and I love to teach workshops. If we can teach people to spend their lives seeing the world in pictures, even when they don't have a camera, if they're just computing all the time, looking at a scene, and they're drawing dotted lines around part of it, they're seeing the light, they're seeing the shadow, they're seeing the composition, they're building images, they're just practicing. You really become a photographer when you can't shut it off.
There's the jetties there with some ice and stuff probably, and the angle of the sun is not an issue because, you know, there's no lighthouse out there that we're after, so. Yeah, maybe we'll see the fox or the deer that Brad saw in the same place.
What's cool about this workshop is we travel a lot, and it's more authentic to how my dad and I operate. So we don't assume that we're the best shooters and you have to do exactly what we do. We want them to use their vision, and if they have a question along the way, they can flag us down, or sometimes we're just kind of next to them watching, chatting about life, and then if they have a photography question, they can ask us at that point.
Yeah, there we go. Gotta get the white. That's just crazy. Okay. Oh yeah, that's good. The histogram is a good exposure. See
The definition in our teaching is foreground, middle ground, background. People have no problem having middle ground and background. They go to the lighthouse, they shoot the lighthouse, and they shoot the sky above it or the sea around it. But a lot of times they don't feature the foreground. And a lot of times that's the layer that makes you experience this and transcend it being a picture, and you're there.
My dad, he's really good at helping others to find their path, start to believe in themselves. It's fun to watch. It's fun to be around. You can't help but want to do it with him.
I don't want to mess with people's vision. I think that's something that I really learned in teaching at the college for all those years too, is that people have some pretty amazing vision. You just have to help them realize that they do, and then help them hammer the vision they have home.
That's also one of my dad's gifts. He believes in you, but he will also push you to higher limits.
It's easy for life to get in the way of your dreams, and it's easy to let go of what you want, what your goals are, who you are. As a parent, as a daughter, you wear all those hats, but I often forget that I'm a photographer, that I'm an artist. He does a very good job at reminding yourself that, you know, dreams are goals with deadlines. What do you want to do? You can do it. Go after it.
So one of our heroes in photography, the late great Galen Rowell, who's climbed most of the mountain peaks in the world, some of them numerous times, he liked to say photography is an action sport.
When it's beautiful and sunny, it's easy to be a photographer. It's easy to go out and shoot, right? Because it's gorgeous. Who doesn't want to be outside? When it's cold and your tears are freezing, but the sunrise is supposed to be beautiful, you know, that doesn't wait. You have to get up and shoot it if you want it, and if you miss it, well, that's on you.
We go chase the light. Even this morning, I was waiting for the sunrise, and I was kind of standing there, and I was like, man, I need to move over there, I need to move over there, and I just started moving, and that's when the magic happens, and you start finding pictures.
We always say to our students, what's the odds that the best spot, best perspective to take that picture from is your eye height? So why would you want to take the majority of pictures standing up at your eye height? Don't you think sometimes you'd like to be down on the ground, or maybe you'd like to be up on a sand dune or climb a ladder or whatever it takes to have a different perspective?
A couple of years ago, it was during the Wednesdays project. He came back from Epworth and he had ice coating every aspect of his pants, of his shoes. He was a sheet of ice because he had been shooting all of the ice balls that form around, you know, the Great Lakes, and that year was so good for them. But he loved it. He doesn't complain. He's going to go out there and he's going to get it. He'll shoot and work that scene for as long as it takes.
It's quite impressive what these modern mid to high-end cameras will endure. You know, we kind of encourage our workshop students to use them. You know, you paid all that money, take it out in the snow.
Todd will be the first one to teach anybody that walks in this gallery. And I think that's what sets him apart. I mean, he's missed shots talking to customers or people that have questions at the beach where he'll be like, I really needed to have that conversation with them and not miss that.
My dad is the first to tell you he has been photographing now 50 years and he's still learning to see. And some people, you know, they just believe they're God's gift to the world and art and they can't get any better. And if you believe that, you're never going to get better. You're going to be stuck down here. So I think that's one of the cool legacies of my dad is the belief that he's never good enough. You know, he's never the Ansel Adams. He's always striving to learn and get better and see. And it doesn't matter how young you are, you may have some cool trick or angle and he wants to learn it to apply it to his own work.
You know, the best things in life are passing the baton and seeing your kids and seeing your team soar and, you know, move on to better heights, bigger heights, and you know, we can all there's room for a lot of success, and we can all be replaced. Yeah.
One of my heroes in photography is a National Geographic photographer named Sam Abel. To paraphrase in so many words, the older he got, the more experience he got as a photographer, the more he realized when he was in the presence of a picture. I get that same feeling, but sometimes you know you're in the presence of a picture, a potential picture, but at this moment, this day, this light is not going to work. But I'm going to put this in my diary. And maybe one day, you know, sometimes it takes 15 years. I can recall a picture. There's a church out in the countryside in a high spot of Mason County near Ludington called the Victory Trinity Lutheran Church. And for, I think, 15 years, I'd drive by that church and I'd find spots in the fields. I'd talk to farmers and be able to go on their land. And I'd go down the various, it's at four corners, go down the road every which way. Never, ever could I quite nail that shot. I never felt like I was in the presence of a picture. And it's very frustrating sometimes, and especially when you think you should be able to do it, right? You know, I'm a professional photographer, I should be able to make the shot today. You know, magic doesn't happen on your schedule. So one day, I'm a news photographer at the time at the Ludington Daily News, and I was dispatched by Scanner to hustle to a car accident that was partway between Scottville, Michigan and Manistee, Michigan on the highway. A vehicle had collided at an intersection with a vehicle that was coming off a side road. And it was a horrible, horrible car accident, the kind of car accidents that I never wanted to go to, but so many times had to go to. You feel pretty darn lousy when you leave a scene like that. And I'm coming back across this country road, and I happen to be on the road that church is on. And I look up ahead, and there's the most magnificent clouds I've ever seen. Big, huge cumulonimbus clouds. I could have just gone on and said, oh, well, not today. But no, I looked at the clouds, I looked at the direction of the wind, I looked at the speed of the clouds, and I thought, I got time to get up by this corn crib out in this farm field where this farmer has let me go. And I got up there, cloud came right over the top of the church, looked like a gigantic Jesus cloud, like ascension, you know? It was unbelievable. And I made the shot. so easily. I mean, it was just so easy. It was right there to take, you know, but only on that day, at that time, 15 years, you know. Some shots, they just come to you in a heartbeat. Some shots, you wait 15 years. You'll never forget that experience, being in that ice cave or watching those northern lights appear at Isle Royale or being on top of that sand dune and just knowing that you're the only one up here taking this all in. You don't have to have a camera to be obsessed with seeing. You just have to pay attention and savor things and study them, and pretty soon they start to become pictures. What a privilege that is.